By now, you've probably seen the headlines. The world's fourth richest man, Gautam Adani, who is also close to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is trying to take over NDTV, considered one of the last few mainstream media organizations that is unafraid to criticize the Modi government. NDTV's founders Radhika and Prannoy Roy have said that the Adani Group's move has been done without their consent. It is a hostile takeover. So, how is Adani trying to take control of NDTV? What does this mean for journalism in India? I'll be joined by journalist Krishn Kaushik, who has reported extensively on NDTV's finances, in just a bit. To understand how Adani is attempting this coup, we need to go nearly 15 years back. The story involves NDTV's old debt and a shell company that had indirect links to Mukesh Ambani's Reliance Industries. These details have been reported by The Caravan and News Laundry back in 2015. In 2008, the Roys took a loan of over 500 crore rupees from India Bulls Financial Services. It was this loan that set off a chain of borrowings. To pay off the India Bulls loan, the Roys took another loan from ICICI. Then to pay off the ICICI loan, the NDTV founders borrowed over 400 crore rupees from Vishwa Pradhan Commercial Private Limited, or VCPL, in 2009. VCPL is believed to be a shell company with links to Mukesh Ambani's Reliance Industries. It is VCPL that has become Adani's key to unlock NDTV. The loan from VCPL was taken on behalf of RRPR, Radhika Roy Prannoy Roy Holdings, a company that was started by the NDTV founders in 2005. Here's the clincher. RRPR owns 29.18% of NDTV. And as per the agreement, VCPL could convert its loan into 100% of RRPR's equity shares at any time. This essentially meant that VCPL could own 1/3 of NDTV whenever it wanted. Now, VCPL was owned by a subsidiary of Reliance Industries, but in 2012, VCPL's ownership was transferred to companies linked to a man named Mahendra Nahata. Mahendra Nahata happens to be a director at Reliance Infocom and is close to Mukesh Ambani. Here's what happened next. NDTV did not return the loan that it took from VCPL, and neither did VCPL do anything about it. Then on August 23rd, Adani Enterprises announced that it had bought VCPL for 113 crore rupees. Less than an hour later, Adani declared that it was exercising VCPL's rights to take over RRPR. This put into effect Adani's acquisition of over 29% stake in NDTV. As Adani takes over nearly 1/3 of NDTV, the move will trigger an open offer. Now, Adani has offered to buy another 26% of NDTV's shares from its shareholders. If this happens, Adani will have the majority stake in NDTV. The Roys together will be left with 32% stake in NDTV, a company that has been in their editorial control since 1988. This entire episode has thrown up two very important questions. One, did the Roys really not see this coming? I spoke with journalist Krishn Kaushik, who has reported extensively on NDTV's financial dealings, to understand what he made of their statement.
The Roy's argument that this was done without their consent, honestly, when they signed away the loan agreement, they gave the rights to anybody who owns VCPL to, get the equity first in RRPR, which means then into the NDTV. However, the loan agreement has one clause which I was just reading yesterday, which mentions that if VCPL or its associates, which now becomes the Adani companies, want to buy more than 26% shares in NDTV, they need to get the promoters' consent. I think that is why possibly the Roys have mentioned that the deal was done without their consent. I'm not sure what is the legality of that exact point at the moment, because honestly, VCPL does not need to buy those many shares. It can just convert them into equity for the debt that it already owns. But maybe that is why the idea of consent was brought up by the Roys. Also, the idea of consent was also brought up by the Roys to, I think, to demonstrate that they were not party to this deal for Adani buying over the company that they have built over decades. Essentially, I don't think they want to associate NDTV with Adani, who is clearly a very very close friend of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and NDTV's ideology, of course, does not align with this government's ideology in most things. So I think that's why the Roys had, these are the two main points why the Roys have brought up the idea of consent and why this was done without their consent. That said, I must add, the people I have been speaking to and the rumors that have been doing the rounds for almost a year now, the Roys could not have been completely unaware that something was afoot, because there have been discussions, in the markets and people whom I have spoken to. They also mentioned that they have heard these things as far as 4 months back, that Adani will make a move to buy NDTV. So the Roys could not have been completely in the dark that something was coming. Maybe they did not anticipate for this to happen this way.
The second question is, why did a man close to Mukesh Ambani sell his company VCPL to his biggest business rival, Gautam Adani?
Of course, we mentioned that Nahata is an Ambani associate, but does he have no agency of his own, because the company was VCPL was owned by him and his colleagues essentially? That's the first question. If we believe that this deal is part of a larger deal between Ambani and Adani, and Nahata was just a proxy, then that raises a lot more questions about what is it that the Ambanis have gained by selling a property that they own. Like, they have at least 29.1% stake if they want to exercise in NDTV, which is, if not a profitable, still a respectable, news organization in the country. However, it is still a strategic asset that it owned. Ambani had given 403.85 crores in loans. Adani, in its filings day before, has mentioned that it has bought VCPL only for 113 crores. So that still means they got about 290 crores less. VCPL got about 290 crores less, VCPL's owners essentially, for the amount of loan that it had given. So even financially, it is not a very prudent decision at the face of it. However, if it is a battle, or if it is a truce, or if it is a deal between Ambani and Adani, there are many, many questions that can be asked about that. Was it directly between Ambani and Adani, who are clearly seen as rivals? Adani has dethroned Ambani as the richest man in Asia, and Adani has now become the fourth richest man in the world, of course. And Adani's wealth has grown exponentially in the last 8 years when BJP has been in power under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And of course, it's not hidden that how his proximity to Modi goes back decades as well. So, is it the combined might of Adani and the government that Ambani is a little wary of? Or has he found a way to find truce and offload an asset that he was not particularly interested in? Because Ambani already has his media entity now, which is the Network 18 group. Usually when billionaires buy a media house, they buy it to either buy influence or exert influence. In this case, if Ambani has offloaded this asset to Adani, it seems like probably one of those rare cases where a media entity has been offloaded by a billionaire to gain influence with the government, rather than Adani buying it to gain influence. So, these are, again, we do not know what really has happened behind the scenes, because there is another entity involved, which is the Mahindra Nahata affiliated companies that are involved, even though he's associate of the Ambani. So it's not, at least on paper, it's not a direct deal between Ambani and Adani.
Many have been quick to compare Adani's bid to take over NDTV to Reliance's acquisition of Network 18. Network 18 too was deep in debt. In 2012, Reliance invested over 2,200 crore rupees in 6 companies promoted by Raghav Bahl, the founder of Network 18. These were in the form of debentures which could be converted into equity shares of the 6 companies at any time within a 10-year period. But 2 years later, Reliance announced that it was acquiring 78% stake in Network 18 by converting the debentures into equity shares. This reduced Raghav Bahl to a minority shareholder.
It's slightly different. See, when Raghav Bahl got into a deal with Reliance, it was a direct deal between him and Reliance. Reliance again exercised those rights over his shares in a similar fashion, but it was still between Reliance and Raghav Bahl. Here, the deal was signed between the Roys and Reliance earlier. This about like 14 years ago, possibly. Those rights were then sold to through VCPL to Mahindra Nahata, who is still a Reliance associate. But now a third entity comes in, with which Royce had no dealing whatsoever, buys those rights and enters the company like from a side door. So that's why this deal is different. The other major difference is, again, this is in the realm of speculation, but it does seem to have the blessings of the government, this deal, because Adani is a very close player of the top leadership of this government. So that's the second major difference. Yes, it is two billionaires in both the deals trying to buy established media entities, national media platforms. But how it is done and the context of why it is being done are quite different.
Remember, Adani made his foray into the media sector in March this year when he took a minority stake in digital business news platform Quintillion, which owns Bloomberg Quint. So what does Adani's bid to take over NDTV mean for television journalism in India?
What it means is NDTV was possibly one of the last media platforms that, if not always critical, at least had hired reporters who and anchors who were critical of this government, and not just this government, even the previous governments for that matter. Now, if Adani takes over, given his proximity to the government, that platform is gone. When you lose that platform, it is pretty damaging for democracy, because all said and done, TV news is watched still by millions and millions of people. The removal of NDTV as an independent voice is a very drastic and tectonic shift in India's TV media landscape. It means that the diversity of views that's available on TV news will become more restricted. You will essentially get more and more of what the government wants. Almost all channels, it seems, will parrot the government line, will toe the government line.
Whatever happens next, what is clear is that the corporatization of Indian media has done and will do nothing to improve the quality of journalism and press freedom. Which is why it is important for you, the viewer, to do your bit to support independent news organizations like the News Minute, which are unafraid to speak truth to power. You can support us by becoming a member. The link is in the description. And as always, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video with your friends.